All right, I don't know what we're waiting around here for. 7:29, but if you're not 15 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late or something like that. Let me see if I can fire the intro song in there.
One, over, 2, 3, okay. Come on, go. Off your back. Huh.
All right, seems like we're live. I don't know. Give a refresh here of the YouTube page. It seems like we're pretty live. All right, individual sections week. It is, what is this here? If you're listening on the podcast, it is Wednesday night. I have put together our section individuals preview, so very speculative here. Who's going to be at what weight for section 1, AAA, AA, single A. We'll get to all that, but then team brackets came out today as well. So I just wanted to briefly touch on that and complain that not all section 1 seed or section 1 teams got section 1 seeds. You know, do that bit, really lean into the section 1 homer stuff. Yeah. Why don't we start there? We'll hit our sponsors here in just a minute as well. You guys are welcome to fire it in the chat as well. If you have my phone number, sure, send me a text message. If you want to, you're bold enough to give me a call, you're welcome to do that as well. Not sure yet if we're going to get an ankle rider call. We're very hopeful to hear from Ankle Rider tonight, but the bottom line is he's got sheep and goats that require a lot of attention. So we're not gonna, we're not gonna set our expectations too high on that front. All right, hey, we already got Clyde from Belchester in the chat. All right, there we go. Clyde from Belchester is here. Nick Curdy fan. Somebody is a huge fan of Nick Curdy. Rightfully so. Living legend, Nick Curdy, Nick from Goodhue. I think everybody is a fan of Nick Curdy. Okay, with that in mind, seeds out. Let's go AAA, AA, single A today because everybody in the area, we love AA and single A. I think AAA probably doesn't get enough talk. Although there are less teams in AAA in southeastern Minnesota. I think there's 8 AAA teams, whereas there's like 9 single A teams and 12 or so, maybe 11 or 10 AA teams. So there's naturally going to be less AAA fans. There's going to be a little bit less AAA talk. So number 1 seed in AAA, no surprise, St. Michael Albertville. They are going to be opening with a random draw. That is Brainerd, the lucky team that is going to see St. Michael Albertville in the opening round. The number 2 seed went to Stillwater, also not a surprise there. This is all based on a coach's vote. Apple Valley draws Stillwater in the opening round. 3rd-seeded Shakopee draws are Northfield Raiders, which, side note, we'll plug this in there. If you haven't listened to the Section 1 team recap, I'd go back and fire that in there, listen to that. Jeff Staub joined me for 10 to 12 minutes. He was fantastic. And then Matt Mosseth, head coach of Chatfield, joined as well, and he was Johnny on the spot. Good stuff there as well. So Northfield draws number 3 Shakopee in the opening round. That's going to be a very, very tough draw for Northfield. I mean, Northfield was the 3 seed in the section tournament, so not a surprise that they didn't get a seed. The way I kind of see it here in AAA, St. Michael, I don't want to say they're officially in their own class, but they're the clear number 1. Stillwater's the number 2. Shakopee really not far behind them, so it's kind of those big 3. And then beyond that, you got Hastings at the 4 seed, Elk River at the 5 seed. So I don't think a bad spot for Northfield to be drawn in here. If you're unable to pull the upset off against Shakopee, you got a pretty good chance against Apple Valley coming through on the backside, so you can win that one, potentially get a 3rd match. So we'll wait to see how it shakes out. On the AA side of things, no surprise, number 1 seed Simley, a traditional southeastern Minnesota program. We are proud to have Simley in Section 1, and they draw South St. Paul, the winner of Section 4 AA. I don't know why we didn't just wrestle that match in the Section 4 AA finals. State High School League thought it would be better to wrestle that one at the state tournament as opposed to just doing it in the Section 4 AA finals. But nonetheless, 2 seed in AA is New Ulm area. What a new era. What a kind of turning of the page here with this AA field. I think that's pretty evident with New Ulm as the 2 seed. Piers is the 3 seed. And I'm going to take a moment to be a Section 1 homer and a piece to all the Section 1 listeners here. But if Piers, hypothetically, was in Section 1 AA, at best, they would be a 4 seed. I'm pretty sure ZM beat them down at the Clash. Piers is a great team. Watch them wrestle. They're tough, top to bottom. That's a balanced team. But they're the 3 seed at state, and they would have been a 4, maybe a 5 seed in Section 1 AA. So there we go. I had to get that out of the way for all the Section 1 homers. Piers drew Perham. Could be an interesting opening round match. I don't know too much on Perham. I think I saw him down at the Clash for a minute. Totino Grace, I didn't mention this, but Totino Grace drew 2-seeded New Ulm in the opening round. And then the 4-5 matchup there, going to be Scott West and Foley. Foley won 6 AA. Scott West, maybe a little bit of a surprise for them to make it out of 2 AA, but of course that's a good wrestling program, so you can't be too surprised to see Scott West back at the state tournament. So I'm curious. I do not think anybody can touch Simley. I would love for one of these other AA teams to make it interesting up at the state tournament, but I think we've seen the most competitive matches we're going to see against Simley this year. I think we saw those last Saturday. It's my humble opinion. We'll wait and see. Class A team seeding. Number 1 seed, no surprise here, Staples Motley. They are in a class of their own this year. Won the whole dang thing last year. Wasn't an ultra-competitive match last year with Chatfield either. They drew Kenyon Wanamingo in the opening round, so good luck, KW. Best of luck with that one. It's honestly a tough draw for KW because after the Staples Motley match, they're likely going to see UNC or Jackson County Central. And everything I've seen and heard from UNC this year, UNC's tougher than nails, just real balanced, tough to bottom, whereas Kenyon Wanamingo's lineup, they're maybe a little bit more, they've got their stars, and then they've got their spots in the lineup where they're a little bit less experienced. So UNC, the 4 seed, Jackson County Central, the 5 seed. Guillotine Forum was basically telling me that these 2, 3, and 4 seeds were going to be really interesting in Class A. Staples Motley being the obvious 1 seed, and then UNC, Chatfield, Minneota all had a pretty solid case for different spots there, 2, 3, 4. It ends up Minneota is the 2 seed. They've had a really, really nice season. I don't think that should shock anybody that they ended up with the 2. Chatfield gets the 3 seed. UNC gets the 4 seed. I think UNC maybe had an argument to get up to 3, but ultimately they end up with the 4. So Minneota as the 2 seed. They get LeSueur Henderson in the opening round. They are back at the state tournament. And 3-seeded Chatfield draws West Central area. And do not forget about Ashby, Brandon, or Evansville there. So that is the Class A state tournament. Do not think I'm going to be making any predictions at this point. I do not think. This is my snowfall total map we're looking at here. This is just fantastic here. If you guys have not gotten this, gotten on board with this raindrop website, great way to track snowfall totals. Here, just as a little aside. See, look at this. Like in Goodhue, boom, inch of snow in the last 24 hours. Red Wing, 4/10 of snow. Go up to Inver Grove Heights. Look at that. Almost 7 inches of snow in Inver Grove Heights in the last 24 hours. Whereas the rest of Section 1, maybe about like an inch of snow. I think that's a good little exercise. I think that puts things into perspective. So that is the Class Triple A, Double A, Single A state tournament fields. I'm not going to be breaking any news here, but I did get an email from the old Nespin service that organizes the broadcasters for the state tournament, and thought I'd just get you guys a quick refresher on when these team matches are going to be. So, of course, starting on Wednesday, 1 week from today, Wednesday the 25th, first session is going to be team quarterfinals at 4 p.m. That is AAA and AA. At 6 p.m., the next match will commence. That is team quarterfinals for Class A, and then Consi semis for AAA and AA. So if you're a AAA and AA team, it could be over very quick for you if you go 0-2 at 4 p.m. and then 6 p.m. And I guess you're headed back home and you're going to school on Thursday and Friday. But then at 8 p.m. Wednesday night, that is AAA, AA, Single A, semis. That's going to be a fun session, 8 o'clock on Wednesday night. And then also the 2 consolation matches for Class A going on Wednesday night. And then Thursday starts with individuals, that opening round of 16, all boys and girls, I believe. Run that all the way up until mid-afternoon or whatever. Next session on Thursday at 4 p.m. is team 5th place and 3rd place matches, and then at 7 p.m., team championships. I like that layout. I think that's a good layout. So that is the state team tournament. So, all right, let's get to what we've all been waiting for here. We're going to hop over to the Section 1 individuals preview. We're going to start with AAA. Like I said, AAA deserves some love. We're going to let them lead it off here first, and we're going to start down low because you can always move up in a weight class as a wrestler. You cannot move down, so it makes more sense for me that we move from the bottom to the top. Might move kind of quickly through this. You guys know what I've been saying this year. Big team dual wrestling guy this year. Individual tournaments do a little bit less for me. And also, this exercise is so speculative. We really don't know who's going to be at what weight. This is all just a guessing game. I don't have the full results throughout the course of the year in terms of this wrestler beat this wrestler, he beat him. So I don't know where these are going to be seated. And then obviously brackets don't come out until Friday. So more of just an exercise just to kind of give you the ideas of what weights are strong, what weights are deep, who are the favorites potentially at certain weights. All of this, all sorts of speculation. Don't take it seriously. And also, I don't need messages about, oh, hey, this wrestler's hurt, or hey, this wrestler's going to be bumping up. Just a fun exercise to get us excited here for the section individual tournament. So we start at 107 in Triple A. 107 and 114 are always some of the very best weights. You got these youngsters. You don't know exactly what you're going to get. Maybe there's a couple more 6/3 upsets. And then, the wrestlers come out maybe a little bit more wide-eyed and letting it fly. And I always enjoy watching these young scrappers here at the section tournament. So at 107 AAA, I'm thinking potentially Miles Ossie. I probably pronounced that wrong. I'm sorry, Miles, but of Owatonna could be the number 1 seed there. He had a big win over Lane Royston, who is the only returning state entrant down low at these first 2 weight classes in AAA. So got a really narrow victory over him, and then also a win over Rochester John Marshall's Alvin Vang. So it looks like Miles could be the number 1 seed. Lane Royston, returning state entrant. He's going to have something to say about this bracket. I'm going to scroll up so you guys can see it a little bit better, and you don't have to look at my face as much. But outside of that, like I mentioned, Alvin Vang he's a more experienced wrestler for Rochester John Marshall. He might be a senior or a junior, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be tough. And then Liam Maley, who I was talking about yesterday with Jeff Staub, who's been a huge addition to the Northfield lineup down low at 107. He's just a 7th grader. Don't know what you're going to get out of a 7th grader in the section tournament, but he's probably going to be a top 4 or 5 seed as well. So that is 107 AAA. 114, again, another Owatonna lightweight. I only saw Owatonna once this year, so when I started putting my spreadsheet together, I was kind of surprised. I was like, they got some good, tough lightweights. Mason Sorensen, he's an 8th grader. He's got some big wins this year, including down at 107, Maley and Royston, who I had just mentioned. And I believe, according to my research, Sorensen and Miles Ossie, Owatonna, both have been double wing at 107, so you don't know exactly who's going to show up where, but I think they both stand a really good chance at making to the state tournament. Aside from Sorensen at 114, Easton Johnson has made big leaps for Northfield this year. He had a big win earlier this year over Ossie. I think that was at 114. I think Ossie comes up to 114 or something, but beyond that, you got Cameron Rydell and then likely Joran Solak, who's also a 107-pounder for Century. So a couple teams double weight at 107. You don't know exactly how that's going to shake out. Like we said, though, Royston, the only returning state entrant down here at these 2 lighter weight classes in AAA. As we move up to 121, we have a little bit more experience here. Devon Gross and Jacob Wilson, both returning state entrants. Gross of Albert Lee, Wilson of Owatonna. So those Owatonna lightweights, you're going to see a lot of them early on. And then beyond that, Deontay Houston has made big strides this year for Century. He's going to probably push one of those two for a state spot. At 127, other Gross brother for Albert Lee, Dylan, he's likely the number 1 seed there. Beyond that, I think there's a real opportunity for some wrestlers to get on the podium. Maybe Jackson Spearman, I don't know, is a potential 2, 3, 4 seed. Jaden Zikita, nailed the pronunciation, of Austin is also potentially getting a seed. I don't really know what is here beyond Gross. I think he's the obvious number 1, and then beyond that, this one could go in a lot of different directions. At 133, I think Malachi Olson of Albert Lee or Gage Robb of Owatonna maybe is the 1 seed here. It looked like Olson, Robb, and Trimble kind of jumped out to me as the 3 big names, but I didn't see any common matches between those 3. Gage Robb would be the only returning state entrant, so I don't know, 3-horse race potentially could be. And those brackets where there's kind of 3 obvious ones, it's semifinals get to be very important. Those 2-3 seed matchups, you end up having to beat 2 wrestlers to make sure you go up to state, but nonetheless. 139, kind of a 2-horse race from what I saw in the old USA bracketing. Dana Nelson, John Marshall, just an 8th grader. Man, he's tough. He's real tough. He would be the obvious number 1. Keegan Toma of Century would be the number 2. Both of those guys, I believe, looking for their first trips to the state tournament. At 145, we get a touch deeper here. Ryan Collins is probably the obvious name as the returning state entrant. I think he went to state last year, maybe down at like 27 or 33, somewhere in there. And then beyond that, I think Gabriel Calise, Century. It's a senior, I think. I think Keon's younger and Gabriel is older, but I think Gabriel's going to have a shot to make it through at 145. Lane Coleman of Faribault, if you remember that name. Yeah, Faribault is still in the section. I think he could make a run at making the finals as well. Those would be the 3 big names that stand out at 145. At 152, this is where AAA starts to get a little bit deeper. 152, 160, 172, and so on. At 52, Sam Harner's been on a tear lately. Jeff Staub talked about that yesterday. He's wrestling really well. I think he's the obvious 1 seed, and that's going to be the trend here. Northfield wrestlers as the 1 seed at 52, 60, and 72. Beyond Harner, who is the only returning state entrant here potentially at 52, Keon Calise is going to have his name in the hat, and then Jace Houston of Albert Lee, and I think Noah Calhoun of Owatonna would all be guys to watch at 152. At 160, Caden Staub, returning state entrant. He's likely the number 1 seed there. Beyond that, Riley Krieger and Cooper Sheeran split matches this year. Sheeran doesn't have a ton of matches this year for Century, was out of the lineup for portions of the year. And then William Mullenbach of Austin. He's currently ranked 10th in state. I think I said that yesterday. So this one looks a little bit deeper. Could potentially be a good semi or two here at 160. 172 AAA. This one I'm excited for. Zane Engels, Brecken Wackles. They are both returning state entrants. I think Zane placed 4th at state or something last year. He has the win during the regular season over Wackles by a score of 7-2, according to my research. I think those are the obvious 1 and 2 here at 172, but beyond that, Tristan Donner Olson could be at 172 if he wants to. He's wrestled there a bunch this year for Century. Kellen Berger, I don't know if he's still getting mat time for Rochester Mayo. If he is, he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on. And then Devin Nelson, who's a senior from John Marshall, has won some matches this year for the Rockets. So, again, like we said, getting a little bit deeper as we get into the middle and upper weights. At 189, and again, don't know who's going to be where, especially in these upper weights. You tend to see more movement in between weight classes, whether it's a 72-pounder going to 89 or an 89-pounder going to 215 or whatever it may be. So this all could change. At 189, we could potentially see Trent Ignashevsky, who is a sophomore for Albert Lee at 189. He's had a really nice season for a sophomore up at 89. Looking for his first trip to state. He has a win over Charlie Johnson, who is likely going to be the only returning state entrant up here. Of course, other than Engels and Wackles at 172. But as far as like 89 and 215 go, most of those guys that made it to state last year out of AAA, they graduated. So Charlie Johnson's going to have his name in the hat. William Donner Olson is going to be up here somewhere. And then Carter Flatland of Owatonna had a really nice season with a few wins over some of these guys. At 215, the big name is Duke Bartu, and what a phenomenal name that is. Duke, just a freshman. My research says he's 34-4 on the year for a freshman at 215 pounds, which is just insane. Beyond Duke, Lane Meyer has been in the upper weights for Rochester Century. He's wrestling a ton of huge matches this year. Gotten a bunch of wins for the Panthers. Cannot forget about him. And then Albert Lee is a freshman named Crabtree that apparently has won a bunch of matches this year. So some talented freshmen up here in the upper weights, and see if they can find their way through to the state tournament. That's a heck of an experience for a freshman, finding your way up to the state tournament as somebody up at 189 or 215. So we'll see if it happens. At 285, you guys know the big name, Caleb Loomis, big man for Rochester Mayo. He's going to be the number 1 seed as a returning state place winner up there. Beyond that, Forrest Allen, William Velasquez, Caden Keller, all guys to watch there. A weight where maybe the passenger seat is open. Maybe we see a guy from 215 wrestling heavyweight. Maybe we see a guy from 89 wrestling 215. Do not know exactly how that's going to shake out. So, AAA. Starting off with AAA tonight. Quick scroll of the YouTube comments here. Survey says, move your face to the bottom right. All right, you got it, Flusher Fixer. We'll move our face. No, actually, we're going to leave it right there now. I stand corrected. Okay. Always good to have Flusher Fixer in the chat. He keeps us honest. Before we move on to AA, a quick thanks to all our sponsors. Lodemeier's Incorporated of Goodhue, local farm and grain equipment dealer. Whether you need a tractor, mower, whatever it is, give Lodemeier's a call. They'll take very good care of you guys as well. Good people over there. I always enjoy interacting with them. Gorilla Wrestling Club. Me and Gorilla Wrestling Club are beefing today. He was taking cheap shots at me on Twitter saying I've gone corporate whatever that means, playing political games, avoiding controversial topics. He's accused me of such things. So, yeah, me and Gorilla Wrestling Club, we're not on talking terms right now. Hopefully, by the time Section Individuals rolls around Friday, hopefully we're back on the same page. But if that's not the case, then we might have to just get a little exhibition in on Friday night. I might have to lat drop him straight out of the Civic Center. I might have to hip toss him into Qdoba, that downtown Qdoba or something like that. Watch your back, Gorilla Wrestling Club. All right, our third sponsor, Culver's of Rochester, North, South Culver's, all good. All good stuff there. I'm going to get myself a Butterburger on Friday or Saturday. Maybe 2 Butterburgers. Definitely going to get some fries. Thank you to the Clash National Wrestling Duels. Mark your calendar for next January. If you're a team that's interested, get in touch with the Clash board members. Send them an email. They have specific, I don't know what the term is. I want to say recruiters, but I'm not sure if that's what the term is. They have specific people who talk to interested teams and talk about what it would look like for them to be in the Clash. And then Heeman Tree Service, Dylan and Riley Heeman. They do a great job. Put their lives on the line so you don't have to put yours. They will get up there around the power lines. They've got the bucket truck. They do a great job. So, Heeman Tree Service. Those are our sponsors. All right, this is where things get kind of funky. Section 1, Double A. These are going to be some really deep brackets. There's going to be high-end wrestlers in here. There's going to be depth. This is going to be it's going to be the best section individual tournament, I think, across the entire state. I think that's fair to say. You're going to have Friday night quarterfinal matches that are must-watch. Friday night, when wrestling starts at 5, 6, 7 p.m., there's going to be 30-win wrestlers going against 30-win wrestlers in the quarterfinals in AA, or a 30-win wrestler going against a returning state place winner. There's going to be weights with multiple returning state entrants, multiple returning state place winners. That is just how crazy 1AA is this year. All right, so we start at 1-7. This is going to be a great bracket. 107. Garrett Williams of Cannon Falls is likely potentially the number 1 seed. He's got some tight wins this year over the likes of Grayson Schrader from ZM, Bryson Colton Beetle, Flusher Fixer. Let me know how to pronounce that one. I don't want to be disrespectful to Bryson because he's had a great season. I think it's Colton Beetle. But anyways, Garrett Williams got a tight 2-point victory over him, and then he beat Damon Mann. I was almost going to say Dominic Mann. That's not the case. He beat Damon Mann in tiebreakers. So that just shows the top wrestlers here at 107 all tucked in very closely with each other. I think I've seen Williams and Schrader wrestle this year, and Colton Beetle. They have really exciting styles, good pace. And then you throw in a Mason Zabel, who's probably going to come into the tournament with 30 wins or something like that. Johnny Salas is Simley, who's a 7th grader who's won a bunch of matches for Simley this year. So it's you're at least 6 deep. There's probably going to be a 7th, 8th, 9th wrestler that I'm forgetting about here that's really talented. So anybody could find their way out of this one, and just a ton of talent. This is going to be one of the most exciting weights in AA. Colton Beetle. Okay. All right. I like it. That's good. We move up to 114. We got a couple returning state place winners here. Jake Kranz of Simley and Owen Parrish of Cannon Falls. They're both returning state place winners. And then you get into some of the depth there. Owen Zabel of Plainview, Jamilville. He spent time ranked this year. He's going to come in with just a ton of wins, maybe 35, maybe 40 wins or something like that. And then you got Colton Hoffman for Pine Island, who's a lightning rod. He's the type of guy that could pick up a big, upset in the semis or something like that, is a 4, 5, 6 seed. And then Jonah Carroll, who's as steady as they come for ZM. Again, another great bracket, looking like it's taking shape here at 114, if these are the names we see there. 121, Adrian Mincy is the big name. I hope I didn't mix up Adrian and Aiden. I think Adrian's at 121. He's the returning state champ. So you've got a returning state champ in Mincy. You've likely got Caden Lindquist from Castle Manorville, who's a returning state place winner. He was the number 1 seed at state last year. So that's for starters. That's likely your number 1 and number 2 seed. After that, you have Carl Murray, who was a state semifinalist last year. And then you mix in guys like Chase Hoffman and Reed Erkey. So you guys are kind of seeing the trend here, right? State champ, 2 returning state place winners, other guys who are going to have won a ton, 25, 30, 35 matches this year. There's going to be some dynamite quarterfinals on Friday night. You're going to have to bring your best just to get on the podium here. 127. So this is interesting to me. Damir Safronov, probably likely the returning number 1 seed. I don't know if he got a state medal last year. I know he was at the state tournament, but Gentmeyer was up there as well. He's likely one of the top seeds. Michael Ellsmore kind of I shouldn't say threw a wrench in seeding, but he made this bracket a lot more interesting when he knocked off Safronov on Saturday. So you kind of got that storyline to follow there as well. We'll see how seeding shakes out. But beyond that, Easton King of Plainville, Millville, he's had a really nice season as well. So in my eyes, those are kind of the top 4 wrestlers. Crazy to say, but I think this has been potentially the lightest bracket so far at 127. And you still have 2 returning state entrants and then a couple of wrestlers beyond that who are really, really talented. At 133, I don't know who's going to be in here for ZM. They've been weighing Noah Schaefer and Sam Moore, both guys who have state experience. Sam Moore was a state finalist last year. Simley's got Buddy Jackson, who's likely a top 3 seed. I think he's been ranked top 5 in state basically the whole year. After that, you got Adam Parrish, who's also a returning state entrant and been state ranked the entire year. You could have Adrian Lopez Ramirez here from Lake City, who was at state maybe 2 years ago or something like that. So you've got potentially 3 guys with state tournament experience. You mix in Buddy Jackson, who's going to have state tournament experience at some point. And then again, depth beyond that with Cooper Nelson from Plainview, LG Millville, and Peyton Loftus for Pine Island, guys who have won a lot of matches. And if they're not in 1AA, those guys are probably looking for state tournament bids other places. 139, returning state champ for Sinley. That is likely Jake Kaz. I know he's wrestled 139 and 145 both this year. I'm thinking he probably ends up at 135, but I have no inside info. I have no clue. After that, ZM is going to have one of their guys up here, so there'll be at least a couple returning state entrants at 139. Kalen Anderson had just a heck of a day on Saturday, picking up a couple really big wins over returning state entrants, so I don't know where he falls seating-wise, but he's red hot, and he's very relevant here at 139. After that, you got, again, PEM's Tucker Binner and Pine Island's Caden Ganson as guys that are going to push for state tournament trips, push for spots on the podium. At 145, Pine Island's going to have a real good wrestler here. We didn't see Jag Foster last week. We may see him this week. I don't know. Don't have any inside info. Don't want or need any inside info. But Kyron Ganson could be here as well. They're both returning state entrants for Pine Island. Dresden Short could show up here for Simley. He's a returning state entrant. And then after that, Benny Lopez Ramirez, Lake City, Nash Grainer from Plainville, Millville, Caden Walrod from Cannon Falls, and Leo Beyer from ZM. All guys that are mighty worthy of a spot on the podium, if not even more than that. 152, look at these names. Look at these hammers. Aiden Grainer. We'll see if we see Aiden. I ran into him last Saturday. He still looks tough. He still looks like he could kick my butt. Looks like he could probably blast double me through this wall behind me. But yeah, Aiden Grainer, haven't seen him in a while. We'll see if that's a thing this weekend. Aiden Mincy of Simley, he's a returning state entrant there as well. Nick Tyne of Pine Island. I don't think Nick's been to state yet, but We know the football season he's had. We know the wrestling season he's put together. He knocked off Jonah Coleman earlier this year, and Jonah's a returning state place winner for Cass and Manorville. So, I mean, if everyone's healthy and everyone's in here at 152, you're looking at, I don't know, 4 of the top 6, 7 152 pounders in double A. Like, that's pretty insane. At 160, returning state entrants there would be Rex Ashford and Griffin Peterson. Ashford from KM, Peterson from Cannon Falls. You got other guys who've been in lineups for a very long time. Honestly, a lot of similarities here between Ben Grabow, Pine Island, Nolan Ford of Plainville, Jamilville, and Kane Lexfold from Zimbrota Mazeppa. Guys who've just been in the lineup for a long time, helping their teams, and have kind of, I don't know, just fallen into the depth that is 1AA. So I know all of these guys have placed at sections. I think Grabow's been third 2 times at least. And then I know Nolan Ford and Kane Lexfold have wrestled at the section tournament and gotten medals a bunch. So, like, guys that are deserving of state tournament trips, but have just been kind of caught in the depth a little bit. So, as Ashford is not a returning state entrant, but he was a state entrant 2 years ago. Griffin Peterson was a state entrant last year, I believe. So, I mean, 1 through 5, if these are the 5 at 160, I mean, anybody's 1 through 5. Anybody's here at 160. 172, Simley's probably going to have Emilio Salas in here. He's a returning state entrant. Saw him last weekend. He's wrestling really well. Slade Barnett is a returning state entrant for Waseca. State place winner, I believe, as well. I think he got 5th. And then Kimani Bent for KM. Key was a state entrant last year. So, again, you're looking at likely 3 returning state entrants here at 172. And then beyond that, Zach Schaefer, Pine Island, Jackson Hewitt, Stewartville, won a ton of matches this year as well. And then Gavin Zabel from Byron, who's had a really nice year stepping up into the Byron upper weights. Yeah. 189. No returning state entrants, potentially, here at 189. Parker Richards, he's taken a big step forward this year. He's gotten some big wins. Could be the number 1 seed. Owen Lexfold, Brandon Watts, ZM, and Simley's guys there could be high seeds as well. And Alden Smith of Pine Island could be a top 4 or 5 seed as well. So, we'll see. I'm curious to see who makes it out of that one, and if these guys that we've been so impressed with this year, I mean, we've been talking about Owen Lexfold for a few years now, but like Parker Richards, I'm curious if whoever makes it out here at 89 is on the podium at the state tournament. I suspect that could be the case. 215, a lot of depth here at 215. Keegan Lowry of Pine Island, he had a win early in the year, I believe, over Tristan Zingler of Cannon Falls, who's a returning state entrant. So those two could be your number 1 and number 2 seeds potentially. Beyond that, Tyler Dargowitz of Simley is a likely seed somewhere 1 through 6. KM's going to have a wrestler in here, whether it's Caston Winnie or Griffin Grover. PEM's going to have a tough wrestler here as well between Mason Trade-Up and Logan Peterson. Like we said at AAA, a lot of shifting that goes on in the upper weights. And then at heavyweight, the returning state entrant there, Matthew Verhoeven, is probably the number 1 seed. Number 1, maybe number 2. I know Waseca, they see some section teams, but maybe not a ton. So beyond that, Mason Edwards at Byron's has had a really nice season. KM's going to have one of their guys up here. And then I did not know this name until I started doing some research, but Ryan Erie of Stewartville is apparently a sophomore with over 30 wins. So he's somebody to watch. And Gavin Seymour of ZM. Grinded out Gavin. He's won matches this year as well. Certainly can't rule him out. So look what I did here. I made a list of the teams I'm rooting for. And I kind of got into this a little bit yesterday talking about Simley getting moved into Section 1AA, and we do love you guys, Simley. We certainly welcome you into the Mayo Civic Center. You guys are fantastic. It's the realignment situation that I think for me is a little bit frustrating. With that in mind, it's gotten so much harder for some of these teams that are building their programs to fight a kid through to the state tournament. And we've said it before, we all know how much it means to get one kid through. Just get one kid through. Get a reason for the program to go up there, watch the kid wrestle at the state tournament. Give the people in the community a reason to get that NSPN subscription and watch that kid up at the state tournament. You know, like 2 years ago, it was Adrian Lopez Ramirez. I'll use Lake City for both of my examples. It was Adrian Lopez Ramirez 2 years ago. Lake City fought. They got him through. Great for Lake City, great for the program. Last year, I think it was Lake City pushing Weston Roberson through, up at 172, if my memory is not mistaken. But awesome to see those programs that are trying to grow push a wrestler through. Get a wrestler through to the state tournament. So with that in mind, the teams I'm pulling for hard this year, Lake City, Waseca, I think Waseca is going to get one or two through for sure. But Byron, would love to see Byron get Edwards through if they can at heavyweight. Stewartville could get somebody through if they could get Hewitt through, or if they could get Erie through. Would just be awesome and would mean even more this year because of how deep and talented 1AA is. All right. Lots of firing it in there going on. I think we're ready to move along to single A. You can see I take progressively less notes when I get to double A and single A. I just know those wrestlers a little bit better. I've announced more of those matches this year in the HVL. Just with how the workload has been, those have been the teams that I've seen more this year. And also the radio station I work at, we're covering like Lake City, Goodhue, Plainview, Elgin, Millville. So kind of that side of the world. I do end up being a little bit more familiar with those wrestlers. Single A at 107, I think Joey Cady is likely the obvious number one seed. He's basically beaten every other wrestler that's going to be in the bracket at 107. Kid's a lightning rod. He's going to have his name in the hat for a state title. Beyond that, it seems like Kipton Miners be probably the clear number two seed as just an eighth grader for Caledonia, an eighth grader that we're going to see a lot of going forward. A couple sneaky names having good years at 107. Sam Reslov of La Crescent, Carter Lafee of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford Peterson, Ben Gadiant of Goodhue, all guys that are going to try and climb as high as they can on the podium at 107 and single A. 114, the lone returning state entrant would be Aiden Burns, a senior from Caledonia. I think he's probably a shoo-in for the number one seed. He has a win over Gunnar Polakowski of Chatfield earlier this year. I think Polakowski and Arlen von Knobelsdorf of Goodhue, those are like your 2A and 2B potentially. I guess Tyson Duongdi and Eason Johnson, you can maybe throw their names in there as well. I think this is a nice, deep, solid top 5-ish, top 6-ish at 114. Burns is the obvious, most experienced guy there. We'll see how the top two shake out here at 114. At 121, returning state place winner Jamison Preby is going to be most likely the number one seed. I don't know if Preby and Barclay met up this year. God, that would be fun to find out if there was a website where I could do that. And when I say Barclay, I'm referring to Miles Barclay of St. Charles. And here I am on USA Bracketing, pulling up St. Charles. And here is the profile. Look at the bouts. See if they wrestled Chatfield here at any point. No. Okay, so when Chatfield and St. Charles wrestled, Barclay was up at 127. And Logan Pearson won that one 5-2. Hey, if you can keep a match against Logan Pearson within 3 points, that's pretty good in my book. And also, going up a weight class there as well. Although now I'm noticing Barclay, all these at 127. Oh, there's at 121. I think he's certified at 121. Don't quote me on it. Like I said, you never know where these guys are going to end up. So, Miles Barkley, I think we know about him in the area, but statewide he's flying under the radar. I think that kid is potentially destined for the state tournament. We'll see how it shakes out on Friday and Saturday. 121 after Preby and Barclay, you got Jay Ryan of Goodhue, who's won over 25 matches this year for Goodhue, and then one of the Conway brothers from Caledonia, likely to end up at 121. They're going to be tough. Those Conway brothers down low for Cal. At 127, the big two names. We've seen them wrestle twice this year. Logan Pearson of Chatfield, returning state place winner, and then Christian Zabrowski of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford, Peterson, the Screaming Eagles. State place winner 2 years ago for Zabrowski, I believe. So those are the big two. Pearson won the most recent matchup by major decision. The first match of the year, Zabrowski won a tight one, I think. Max Loftus, Dovriota, I think he could potentially be in here somewhere as well. I don't know if it's 21, 27, or 33, but he's been around a long time for Dovriota, and he's going to be an obvious one fighting for a spot on the podium somewhere. At 133, Cason Johnson, he's a returning state entrant for Chatfield. Michael Alexander, I think those are kind of the top two-ish names, with Bronson Shea of Dovriota fighting in there as a potential 3 seed. I know him and Alexander, I saw them wrestle in Lake City at the individual tournament over there, and that was a pretty good match. Alexander did end up winning it, so I think Bronson Shea probably the clear number 3 seed. Hunter Frank of Caledonia, August Pfeffer of Fillmore, Central, Lanesboro, Mabel, Canton, going to be likely seated as well. Cole McQuiston of Wabasha Kellogg has had an under-the-radar solid season, so some good depth here at 33 along with some high-end guys. At 139, Owen Lang, I think of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford, Peterson is probably the obvious number 1 seed, obvious favorite here. Beyond that, Lane Root of Chatfield could be a 2 seed. Tim Strauss, Weston Murphy of St. Charles, guys that have had solid seasons. I don't know if this is a spot where somebody goes up, I'm wondering. There doesn't seem to be a real natural candidate for someone to move up to 33 to 39. I'm going to think it probably doesn't happen, but who knows, maybe. At 145, Hunter Polakowski, he's likely number 1 seed. But I think 145 here, this is really, there's a lot up in the air here at 145. Polakowski's the obvious one. I shouldn't even say obvious because, I mean, maybe Carter Bronk of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford, Peterson has a case. He had a big pin against Chatfield in the section semis last Saturday, so maybe Bronk has a case. But beyond that, just a ton of depth here at 145. Guys like Cam Haley of St. Charles, Carter Shea of Dovriota, Adrian Michaels, La Crescent, name there for you. Grant Daniels, Fillmore Central, Lanesboro, Mabel Canton, and then Benson Brunkow of Wabasha Kellogg. So I think depth is kind of the highlight here at 145. Few different names that could find their way to the state tournament. At 152, both returning state entrants would be Henry Donalick of La Crescent and Hayden Holm of Goodhue, likely 1 and 2 seed there. Brendan Keppel of St. Charles, that's a kid that can score some points. I think Keppel of St. Charles, Johnson of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford, Peterson, that'd be Jackson Johnson, both guys to watch that can score some points, and don't be surprised if they pull an upset off this weekend. Cody Raymaker of Chatfield also looking to be in here, maybe at 45, 52 most likely for Raymaker. We move up to 60. Talon Rabies, the returning state entrant. I think that's probably your number 1 seed. I think Hopple, would have had a pretty strong case for a 1 seed if we were to see him this weekend, which, it's a bummer. After Raby, Adam Grant of Goodhue, Colton Jenkins of Lewiston, Altura, Rushford, Peterson, and Brendan Cobes of Chatfield, all guys that I think are going to be fighting for a spot at the state tournament. I don't Yeah, I don't know how that shakes out seating-wise with Grant, Jenkins, Cobes. And I also feel like I'm missing a wrestler here. I feel like I should have somebody else in there at 160, and maybe my research has a hole in it. At 172, I think he is going to be the one seed. I think he's the man to beat. Will Allen. He's just put together a fantastic year this year. Saw him down at the Bi-State and knew he was going to be a man amongst children this year. Beyond that, not exactly sure who the number 2 is in this bracket. Is it Erkey from Dover Yoda, Jack O'Reilly from Goodhue, McKinley Cabot from La Crescent? Quince Kazi's won over 30 matches for Fillmore Central this year. Yeah, I don't know. I do not know. 189, obvious 1 and 2 here would be Kane Larson, returning state champ, Zach Plank, Lewiston Alcher, Rushford Peterson, returning state entrant, Anthony Von Arx, Caledonia. We did not see him last weekend, but if he's wrestling this weekend, I fully expect him to push for a state tournament spot. Caden O'Reilly's had a really nice year for Goodhue in the upper weights. Trevin Ludasher from Dover Yoda and Andrew Bolter of Chatfield, also names to watch there at 89. This is interesting. This is probably the most interesting talking point in the Class A individual tournament here for this weekend. Where do all these wrestlers shake out at 215 and heavyweight? Because basically, the only true heavyweight, I think that's going to be like a top end guy is Rayshawn Smith of Caledonia. And I don't even know if top end wrestler is the right term there, but like I think Pearson Allen might have the ability to go 215 if he wants to. So like you got all these guys. Goodhue's been double weight at 215 this year. Chatfield's been double weight at 215 this year. LARP has been double weight at 215 this year. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to knock out these weight classes. And I'm just going to say these are the wrestlers that are going to be in contention at 215 and heavyweight. Jack Carlson of Goodhue, returning state finalist. Will Bolter of Chatfield, returning state entrant. Cooper Allen of Caledonia, who's a top 5 state-ranked wrestler. Chase Drazkowski of Lewiston Altura, Rushford Peterson, who's been in the state rankings this year. A lot of really good wrestlers. And then beyond that, Pearson Allen of Dover Yoda has impressed me this year. Other names, I mentioned Rayshawn Smith of Caledonia, James Cullen of Fillmore Central, Trig Hegland of Lewiston Altura, Rushford Peterson, Ethan O'Reilly of Goodhue, all names to watch. Don't know how it's going to shake out. Don't know who's going where. It'll all take care of itself. All right, that's all I've got. You guys can tell that I enjoy talking team wrestling a little bit more. There are portions of that I just kind of flew through. I know the analysis wasn't the best, but like individual tournaments for me, the fun is not in the speculation. With duels, I think there's a ton of fun in putting the lineups next to each other, right? How does this team match up with this? The lead up to duels, the lead up to the team section tournament, super fun. For me, the lead up to the individual section tournament, it's just like, can we get to the wrestling part? As a fan, like I'm not interested in any sort of speculation this week, really, leading up to Friday and Saturday. So, what is a good exercise? It's fun to see what the deeper weights could be. It's like, for me, it's let's get to the wrestling this type of week. Yeah, we got somebody in the comments. Nick Curdy fan is the username. A lot of speculation going on there. That is a very hot piece of speculation you're throwing out there, and I think you're trying to make me laugh, and you're doing a pretty darn good job of it. So yes, text from listener here says that Drazkowski of LARP was a state entrant last year. Is that right? I think that's a K-Fan bit. I think they do that on K-Fan. They go, is that right? I think it is right. So, Clyde from Belchester, he says he's got to go, heading over to Belchester Tavern for darts. All right, Clyde, throw him straight. We'll see you guys on Friday. I don't think we have any last-second smart remarks here. No comments on dating life or hairline or goats or sheep or anything like that. So I think we'll shut it down. I'll throw the podcast up here shortly, but I'm going to play the outro song for editing purposes, if I can find it. Here we go. All right. See you guys.